So, 5 elements are a part of creation. Forms are a part of creation. Sounds are a part of creation. Forms and sounds and tastes and touches and smells, they're all a part of creation. Our body is a part of creation. And every thought that he thinks is a part of creation. That gives a lot of relief. All that we think is a part of creation. That gives a lot of relief. Whereas, where the thinking takes place, that is what we are. We are not, our existence is not to be bracketed with thought. Our existence is independent of what we think. What we are is independent of what we are. He is independent of what we think. Mobiles, please put off. Don't create problems. What we think, what we are, is independent of what we think. You have to dwell on this statement. It is not possible for you not to understand, not to be sucked into reflection. Understand? You see, it is not possible not to get lost in reflection. It is not possible not to be absorbed into reflection. It is not possible not to get into absolute serenity if one sees the difference, that all that one thinks is different from what one is different. What one is independent of one's thinking. The very thought in its entirety, not only good thought or bad thought, this is all nothing. Thought in its entirety. Thought in its any form. Thought in any form can never be an attribute of the thinker, the source. That very subject I am using the term thinker, but thinker means what? The source of thought. Is he the source of thought? And the thought doesn't qualify the thinker, the source. This viveka, seeing one's existence and one's thinking, does it not really make sense? In fact, judging ourselves in terms of our thinking, and then judging ourselves in terms of others thinking about us, judging ourselves in terms of what we think about us, this whole thing comes to an end the moment we understand that our being is unlike every thought of ours. It is independent of our thinking. It is independent of others' thinking. Our existence is independent of. And that being is called Sat. Being can never be experienced except as one's being. You can catch this one sentence. That is enough. Being can never be experienced except as one's being. One's own being. To be is only oneself being. To be. Silence can never be experienced except as oneself. Silentness of one's being. I am trying to explain, I am trying to convey somehow or other, किसी ना किसी प्रकार आपको समझ में आ जाए. Therefore, I am trying my best, and that is the silentness of one's being alone is called silence. Silence is not an object of one's thought. Silentness. You can pick up this language. Silentness of one's being alone can be called silence. And this silentness of one's being is the nature of one's being. That is its nature. Silentness is the nature. Disturbance is a creation. Let us call it a creation to begin with, and then we say, hey, that creation is a Maya Srishti. Aur kya? Creation means Maya Srishti. You see? Therefore, Pragutpattehe, before creation, this world was Sat. This world was my being. It means that. It amounts to saying that. This world was Sat means this world was the being of the subject. Yes, as Bhagavan is going to say later on. Because it is always better to write in the initial stages, right at the fundamentals, it is better to get the correction. Certain important things have to be clarified, have to become clear right at the outset of Vedanta. That is Sat, to be, Astita Matram, as Bhashikara used. Astita Matram, he has given there, the very first line, Astita Matram, Bhashika Pali line mein, Sachabda ka Vak. He has explained away. He has given the meaning of the word Sat. Astita Matram, just to be. That Astita Matram, just to be, that can never be experienced as belonging to something other than oneself, because it is always to stand objectified is not equal to be. To stand objectified is not equal to, it doesn't amount to be the being. That's not Sat. To stand objectified doesn't mean Sat. Where there is no objectification, what is not available for objectification is Sat. That which is not subject to objectification is Sat. Please don't translate. Please don't think. Don't wrongly think that where all the objectification, negation of objectification, when all that is objectified, when that ceases to be objectified, then there is Sat. Don't think like that. That which cannot be objectified is Sat. Even when I am seeing the world is objectified, we are not objectifying ourselves. The subject is not objectified, the object is objectified. Therefore, even when we are looking at the world, the subject who is aware of the world is Sat. Sat is not a state arrived at through resolution of the object. Water is not an identity that is created, that is arrived at, that is accomplished after. Water doesn't come into existence after resolution of the wave. The identity of water as water is there when the wave is there when the wave is not. That's called Sat. The identity of water as water is there when there is wave, and when there is no wave, that's called Sat. Don't think Sat is something, a state reached by resolving. A state of resolution of wave is Sat, don't say. A state of resolution of the wave is not Sat. A state of identity of being water is Sat. And that identity remains intact with the presence of the wave, with the resolution, absence of the resolution of the wave. Therefore, Sat is that which is there before creation of the world. which is there after the creation of the world, which is there after the resolution of the world. Therefore, astita matram should be somehow or other understood. The unobjectifiable being, the unobjectifiable being of one's own being, the unobjectifiable nature of one's being, the unobjectifiable nature of one's being is called Sat. And that is there in the waking. That is there, that alone is there. That alone is there. When the waking is, it is there. When the dream is, it is there. When life is, it is there. When life is not, is there. Life, death have no meaning at all in the light of that Sat. In the continued presence of the water, the beginning and end of the wave, the lifespan of a wave, does it count for anything? Does it count for anything? Does it count for anything? 1-2 minute ke liye, the wave comes for a minute and goes. Or the wave comes and goes and stays for a day, goes. The wave comes for a day and goes. The wave comes and stays for a month and goes. It does in the light of the continuity, in the light of the continuity, in the light of the continuity, temporariness doesn't count. Non-eternity doesn't. A length of time doesn't count in the light of eternity. Continuity is eternity. It is a continuity even when there is no time. That is eternity. Continuity is another word. Generally, people always mistake continuity as continuity in time. Whereas Vedanta makes it clear, continuity does not mean continuity in time. Continuity means continuity even independent of time. That which is there when time is, that which is there when time is gone, that is continuity, that is eternity. Continuity in time, a layman's misconception of eternity is continuity in time. Continuity independent of time is misunderstood as continuity in time. Man always thinks continuity means continuity inside time. This is the mistake. Whereas Vedanta says continuity is not continuity inside time. Continuity means continuity independent of time. When time is, the truth is. When time is, the subject is. When time is gone, the subject is. That is continuity. When thought is, I am. When thought is gone also, I am. That is called Anvaya. That is called eternity. Anvaya is eternity. Anvaya is eternity. Because what is the definition of continuity? Supposing something continues for 100 years, is it continuity? No, it is not continuity. Supposing something remains for 1,000 years and goes, it's not continuity. It's not continuity. Therefore, when time comes, when the time goes, anything that goes with time is not continuity. And therefore here, Bhagavan says, Sat is, Sanmatram is, this universe before its creation was Sat. Sat means the very subject. Nahi pragutpattehe nama rupavad va idamiti grahitum shakyam vastu sushupta kale iva. This is the Vakya we have to see. This is the Vakya. Sadeva idam agre asiditi avadharyate. Up to that we have seen. kevala sachabda buddhimatra gamyameva iti, up to that we have seen. So, even though Sat is pure being, and when that Sat becomes the creation, the Sat continues plus name and form. That's called creation. Sat plus name and form is creation. Sat plus name and form is creation. Like water plus name and form. Therefore, we can't say one is water, the other is name and form. No, water with a name and form is a wave. It's called creation. So we can't say the substance and the water, the substance and the name and form. Because name and form never exist independent of that will. You see? Water plus a name and form. Now a question arises. It's a very important. Swamiji, you are defining creation very peculiarly. It is water plus name and form. Here also the Sat plus name and form. The subject plus the name and form. The silent being plus the name and form. If you say creation is Sat plus name and form, where from did this name and form come? Where from did they come? In Sat there is no name and form. If you say this name and form did not come from outside, because there is no outside to the Sat. There is no outside to the Sat, there is nothing outside to the Sat. If you say this name and form really get created within the Sat, what does it mean created? Created means the unmanifest name and form become manifest. Sat plus name and form. Where from did the name and form come? The name and form that were lying latent in the Sat as unmanifest become manifest. So the unmanifest name and form become manifest. It remained unmanifest in the Sat. It becomes manifest in the Sat, ever remaining inseparable from the Sat, is called creation. I have covered one more hurdle. Sat plus name and form is Srishti. And name and form, where from did it come? It did not come from outside. Why? Because there is no outside to the Sat. Will give you a breakthrough in thinking. There is no outside to the Sat. Like there is no outside, physical outside to the space. There is no outside to the space. There is no spatial outside. Which is outside to the space? There is no outside to the physical space. In the same manner, when the space itself doesn't have an outside to it, how can the Sat, the very truth of this space, have outside? Okay, then where from did the name and form come? It came, it was already in the Sat. This is the prakriya, this is the method of teaching. The name and form that were already there in the Sat, but remaining unmanifest, become manifest. This becoming manifest is called creation. First pick up this term. This becoming manifest. Becoming manifest is not a process. The invisible becomes visible. Bas. For which Bhagavan gives the example in Chandogya Upanishat. If you have patience, you can hear. Supposing you don't have the patience, then during that period you can close your eyes, snore off the class. Because freedom is with you. Nobody can take away your freedom. हमारा देश में कम से कम. That's why it's a Divya Bhumi, Deva Bhumi. Bhashyakara says in Mandukya Bhashya, when it is all dark, the objects are there, it is just they are not visible. This is called unmanifest. Objects are there, but I don't see it. That is called unmanifest. When the sunlight comes, the same objects which remained invisible become visible. That is called manifestation. If this is the example given by Bhashyakara for the unmanifest and the manifest, how much process can you read into it? How much change can you read into it? Kya baat hai ji? How much transformation can you read into it? Yes, the visible becomes invisible. The invisible becomes visible. Bas. The becoming visible and becoming invisible does not come under the process. Another important thing. The imperceived, the unperceived becomes perceived, and the perceived remains unperceived, and the unperceived becomes perceived. This Vyakriti, Avyakriti, becoming manifest and unmanifest should not be commented upon as a process of change. A process of change. Therefore, this manifestation and non-manifestation, this very universe remaining unseen is called its unmanifest state. This very universe becoming seen is called its manifest state. So the becoming manifest, meaning becoming visible, itself is called creation. It's called creation. The universe becomes visible to my sight. It becomes visible to my attention. It comes into my attention. It becomes perceived in my attention. My body becomes perceived in my attention. My mind becomes perceived in my attention. Me as an individual becomes perceived in my attention. And the universe comes to be perceived in my attention. This coming to be perceived in my attention, try to understand, is what is called creation. It's called creation. And then we have another hurdle. The first is, creation is nothing but the unmanifest becoming manifest. And this is not a process. This is not something that implies change, parinama-isme. For the one doesn't have to change to fall asleep, nor should one change to wake up. These are all meant for a lot of observation. Lot of wonders of, this is the wonder of wonders, that really, in order to, for the mind to resolve, it doesn't have to change. In fact, that resolution is not another change. In fact, the mind with all its changes resolves. Tab kya karenge? The mind with all its changes resolves. The mind with the time resolves. The mind with the time resolves. Therefore, is resolution another change? Is not another change. Not another change. Similarly, the same mind reappears is not another change. Anyway, this much you get understand. The unmanifest universe becoming manifest, the invisible becoming visible, is called Srishti. Then the next hurdle is a very, very profound hurdle is, where from did the unmanifest come? Where from did the unmanifest come? Unmanifest form came from where? And there comes very important, that is, form manifest or form unmanifest is in the form of a thought. It's a anati adhyasa. It is an error. It's thought. It's not a thing, but thought. Treated as a thing, ultimately it is a thought. To begin with, it is a thing, ultimately discovered as a thought. It's a creation in awareness. Is a view. Therefore, now coming back to the point, this universe before its manifestation, before its creation, was indeed the Sat. Up to this we have seen. And what is the creation? Sat plus name and form. Now, Sat itself, along with the name and form, is called creation. Therefore, creation carries with it Sat. So, creation cannot be called merely name and form. Creation is Sat with name and form. Creation doesn't mean name and form. Does it not make a difference? Creation does not mean name and form. Creation is Sat with name and form. Like wave is not name and form. Wave is water with name and form. Similarly, here, man is not just the body. Man is not body. You can't say human being is nothing but his body. No. Human being is a truth with a form. He is the spirit with a form. He is not just a form. See? Man is not a form. Therefore, even though man goes on looking into the mirror as if he is only a form, he always looks into the mirror all the time thinking that he is a form. Nor is he dominantly a form. In fact, he doesn't count as a form. ये तो बहुत बड़ी बात है जी. To understand this, you have to hear at least 20-30 hours. We are neither marginally a form, nor predominantly a form. In fact, wave is neither marginally a form, nor centrally a form, not predominantly a form. It is solely water. It is solely water with a view that I am a form. We are not marginally a form. We are not marginally a form, secondarily a form, marginally a form. No. We are neither marginally a form or predominantly a form. We are solely the spirit. We are solely the conscious being. We are solely the being with a form. Therefore, our identity as a form doesn't really count much. It doesn't count for much. That is why we dump it on the bed and then just transfer. If it is so important, nobody would like to leave it. Would like to carry it. How many bodies we have taken? Anyway, here. Nahi pragutpattehe nama rupavat, name and form, va idamiti, this is, grahitum, to see it, na shakyam, it is not possible, vastu sushupta kaleva. It is not possible to see the name and form before its creation. Meaning what? When the creation is unmanifest, you don't see it. Bas. Just get the sense of the way. When the universe is unmanifest, it's never seen. And not to be seen is what is called unmanifest. As in Sushupta Kaleva, as in the deep sleep. In the deep sleep state, the universe is unmanifest, therefore one doesn't see it there. One doesn't see in Sushupti. And therefore when you recollect a deep sleep state, you recollect, this is the Maya. We recollect the absence of the world, the invisibility. We recollect the absence of the world means I didn't see the world, that is how I recollect. We always recollect the deep sleep. After waking up, try to sit down, relax and recollect deep sleep. This effort we never make. In the name of spiritual reflection, in the name of Vedantic reflection, we keep doing all funny things. And those funny things, if you really put them in black and white, they will be the best sellers. Yes, in this book, I am telling you. The book that can carry all the funniest thoughts of human beings, entertained in the name of spirituality. In the name, spirituality is uninteresting for me. But what we think in the name of spirituality, put it in black and white, that will be the best seller. Actually, the first thing that we have to learn is relax and look back at deep sleep. Before I woke up, what is it? Look back at the state before one woke up. Unless that becomes really, that is recognized as important. Before I woke up, is it emptiness? Whatever one was before one woke up, that alone one is even after one wakes up. Therefore, recollecting deep sleep is recollecting absolute silence. Recollecting, even though one says, I didn't see the world, I didn't hear anything, I didn't taste, touch, smell anything, even though one recollects absence of the world, but actually what is recollected as absence of the world, one should slowly learn to recollect it as presence of oneself. This is the movement. This is the correction. Like, when you have to hear this. When you break the pot, there is a pot and you break it, it becomes dust. A mud pot, clay pot, you just put it, dash it to the ground and it breaks. It's all back to clay, let us say, back to clay. Now, when we look at that broken pot, we are used to visualizing that pot, that broken pieces, as absence of what? We look at it as destruction of pot. We look at it as destruction of pot. But it's not destruction of pot, it is the presence of clay. Learning to see it as the presence of clay is what is called learning to understand. When the pot is broken, it's not destruction of pot, it is not the absence of pot, it is presence of clay. Similarly, when we recollect deep sleep, it is not absence of the world, absence of the body, absence of the mind, it is presence. That presence is the Sat. Presence of the Sat. And after waking up, one sees the world, therefore we call this again the presence of the world. So we keep thinking either in terms of the presence of the world or in terms of the absence of the world. Listen to this. We think in terms of either presence and absence of the world, and this is really an error, because we should learn to think when the world is present, the subject is present. When the world is absent, the subject is present. Therefore, the presence of the world means the presence of oneself. The absence of the world means the presence of oneself. This is what is to, that is Sat. So, nahi is pragutpattehe namvad rupavad vaiti idameti grahitum shakyam vastu sushupta kale va yatha, just as sushuptat uttitaha, a person who has woken up from sleep. Sushuptat uttitaha. Because after deep sleep state, one has to wake up, one has no choice. Like after death, rebirth is choiceless. And a person who goes to deep sleep has to wake up. It's not by our choice. These are not Purushatantra Vyaparas. Purushatantra Vyapar nahi. Therefore, if one falls asleep, it is not by one's choice, and if one wakes up again, it's not by one's choice. So if I fall asleep, I have to wake up, whether I like it or not. Laya is followed by Srishti, and Srishti is followed by Laya. Laya, Srishti follow each other. If this is understood, then this thinking, is there punarjanma? These things don't become really issues. Rebirth doesn't become an issue in Vedanta, in Vedic lifestyle, in the Vedic literature. It says punarjanma is there. It is only thing is really, it is not that really avoiding punarjanma that is the problem, that is the solution. You see, every time one is born, one always feels, I am born, I am born, I am born, I am born, I am born. This idea that I am born is an error. Overcoming that error is exactly what is the answer. But is there punarjanma? That's nothing. That's not the issue at all. Why? It's like, if a person goes to sleep, will he wake up? I say if he goes to sleep, he will wake up. Either he wakes up into the same body, or he will wake up into another body. If he wakes up into another body, we call it punarjanma. If he wakes up into the same body, we call it waking. That is birth, this is waking. But that he has to, Vyakriti, the mind that becomes unmanifest has to become remanifest. So at least if one is clear, a continuity of the spirit is always there. One always continues from life to life. One continues from day to day, like from minute to minute, from day to day, from night to night, from life to life. There is continuity. If continuity is appreciated, then living is not a problem. Living is not a boredom. Then you study to understand more about that very continuity. Thus, yatha, just as sushuptatu utthitaha, the one who has woken up from deep sleep, sattvamatram avagacchati, he always recollects sattva presence. See, he takes it for granted. You see, Bhashyakara says, every person who recollects, every person who wakes up from sleep, and then when he looks back at deep sleep, he always recollects absolute silence. Recollecting the absolute silence, recollecting the absolute serenity itself is called recollecting sanmatram. If a person recollects the absence of the world, that absence of the sound must be taken as, the absence of the world must be taken as the absence of oneself, the Sat. Bhashyakara here takes it for granted that every individual after waking up recollects the Sat. Looking back at deep sleep, when you think back at deep sleep, what you recollect is only pure being. Now I will elaborate upon it, you have to hear. Did you see the form? No. Was there a form? No. Was there a movement? Was there a thinking? Was there a thought? No. Was there an emotion? No. In other words, there was no thinking. Thinking as an activity was not there. If thinking was not there, and that is one's experience, and that is called the being, that is sanmatram. Sanmatram means serenity. I don't know how to. I want to really get a breakthrough in explaining this particular point. To be, like thinking is seen, when you think you know it, when there is no thinking also you know it. Therefore, you have to be there to know the thinking when it is done. You should be there to register also freedom from it. Even freedom from the thought is known to us. Therefore, that subject minus the thought is the sanmatram. That is said here. Sushupte sanmatram avagacchati, one recollects. Sushupte, in Sushupti, one always understands, one always looks back at deep sleep, one always looks back at deep sleep and understands the Sushupti as sanmatram, as pure existence. Silent existence. Silent existence. To be with absolute silence is sanmatra. Sushupte sanmatrameva kevalam. And kevalam, there is nothing else. It is being without thinking. There was no thought, no object, no form, no sound, no taste, no touch, no smell, no memory, no desire, etc. Kevalam. Vastu. And that is what is. Sanmatra is called Vastu. Why? It is not thought of, it is. That which exists independent of thought is Vastu. That which exists independent of thought. If something exists dependent upon thought, then it is bracketed with the thought, it has to be called thought. What is dependent upon thought, what gets really conditional to the thought is a like. Love is thought. Love is thought. It's a thought of love. Thought of hatred. Every emotion is a thought. Pleasure is thought. Pain is thought. And that which cannot exist except that which exists only as a thought is a thought. It cannot be called fact. Thought is not a fact. In Vedic culture, thought is not a fact. A fact means that which exists independent of thought. Therefore, in deep sleep, the absolute silence that one is in deep sleep is independent of thought, and therefore it is Vastu. It is Vastu. Vastu. Silence is a fact. Sound is not a fact. A scientist would say silence is a myth, sound is a fact. Just I want you to hear. But Vedanta says sound is not a fact. Sound is a thought. Silence is a fact. Thought is a creation, but the thinker is a fact. The subject is a fact. Therefore, vastu iti tatha pragutpattehe ityabhiprayaha. Just as before one wakes up, it is absolute silence. Similarly, before creation, it is absolute silence. Now, here is a statement. Just as before one wakes up from sleep, it is absolute serenity. It is absolute serenity of one's being. It is absolute serenity. Before creation also, it is absolute serenity, sanmatram. I am trying to use some English term. Even absolute serenity is not the exact equivalent to the sanmatram. मैं क्या करूं? Where do I go? Because this absolute serenity, because how to convey this? If you want me to put it exactly, it will go over your head. If I put it exactly as it is, it means this silentness of one's being. Unobjectified identity of one's being. That is the exact thing. Unobjectifiable identity of one's being. Subjectness of one's being is sanmatra. Unobjectifiable identity of one's being. Silentness of one's being. Serenity of one's being. Serenity of one's being is what is called Sanmad. You see, serenity cannot be the quality of any object. Serenity can only be the nature of one's subject, one's being. You can't say the silentness of the table, the silentness of the mountain, the silentness of the element. You can't say the silentness. Silentness cannot be associated with the objects. Silentness cannot be associated with the objects. You have to hear this. You can't say these silent mountains, etc. No, because the mountains don't have the quality of being silent. The mountains have the quality of being objectified, which is not silentness. To begin with, you think, Swamiji, how can it be? We always say silent. When the house is not mobile, it is silent. The mountains are restful, they are silent. Even the Everest is called Everest because it is ever resting. It is ever resting, therefore it is restful, therefore it is Everest. No, you cannot describe the objects as silent. Objects can always be described as non-silent. They are not silent. Why? Any object has a form, sound, taste, touch, smell. They stand objectified. They don't stand silent. Objects have the property of a form, property of sound, property of taste, touch, smell. They don't have a property of silence. I'm going to continue to say this until you appreciate. Objects don't have the property of being silent. They have only the property of being objectified. They stand object. Not only they stand objectified, they are mischievous. Yes. Objects can cause in your mind, even though they don't cause, but they can become, in facing them, you can develop a desire. Objects can cause. In a way, they also play a role, you see, in development. Objects stand objectified, objects stand desired, objects stand loved, objects stand hated, objects stand enjoyed, or objects stand suffered, but they never stand silent. This is for the scholars to understand, please. I am trying to explain. Silentness is not the nature of the objects. Whenever you experience silence, you don't experience in the objects, you experience in yourself. When you go to hill stations, when you see really there is absence of disturbance, sound, etc., you attribute silence to the atmosphere, and then you close your eyes and become quiet. But actually where you are experiencing that tranquility is not outside but inside, in your own self. If you don't experience tranquility within you, then you don't experience tranquility at all. Either it is experienced in oneself or it is not experienced. Like supposing you go to a very dense forest where there is a tranquility, meaning what? There is no disturbance, all right. It all looks quiet, and you go there, and then if you are not quiet inside, if you are not tranquil inside, Even if you go inside the forest, you don't register the tranquility. Because whenever I register tranquility, that tranquility is registered within oneself. You fight with your wife and go to your solitude. Will you experience tranquility? Therefore, silentness is never the nature of the objects. Silentness is the nature of only the subject. That silentness of one's being, serenity of one's being, tranquility of one's being is what is called sanmatram. Unobjectifiability of one's being is called sanmatram. Existence, silentness of one's being. Therefore, all that one sees as the universe before its creation was sanmatram. Now, therefore, we get the definition of the universe. What is the definition? The universe is the silentness of one's being, the Sat plus name and form. Therefore, the universe is silence plus name and form. Subject plus name and form is the object. Subject plus name and form is the object. Awareness plus name and form is the creation. Clear? Now we give an example. Please see. Yatha idam uchyate. Just as. Yatha, just as. Idam, this, the following. Uchyate, it is said. It is said by somebody like this. Loke, in this world. In this world, sometimes this particular incident is there for us to observe. What is that? Purvanhe. Before 12 o'clock, it is called Purvanha. Purvanha means before noon. Anha means noon. Madhyanha means noon. And Aparanha means afternoon. But please understand, before noon, noon, and afternoon. There are 3 noons. There are 3 noons. One noon is before noon. Another noon is afternoon. And the third noon is noon. Exactly at 12 o'clock. It is 12 noon. 12 noon. 11 o'clock is what? Before noon. 1 o'clock? Afternoon. You can't say, I'll come there at 1 noon. You'll say, I'll come at 1 afternoon. 1 o'clock afternoon. At 1 afternoon. At 2 afternoon. 11 before noon. In this manner. Now, supposing there is somebody who is going from one village to another village. And on the way, he has to pass through another village. I am going from one place to another place. And then like from Delhi to, let us say, you are going to Meerut. And on the way, you have to go through some village. You have to pass through some village. While going through that village, Purvanhe, Ghatadi Sisrukshuna. And Ghatadi means a pot, etc. Sisrukshu means Srashtum Ichuhu Sisrukshuhu. Banane ki ichha wala. The pot maker. A pot maker is one who is all the time interested in making pots. A pot maker is always interested in making pots. That is his main interest. Therefore, when a pot maker is interested in making pots, he must first collect all the material. That material to manufacture anything is called upadanam. The material that you collect for manufacturing is called upadanam. A pot maker always really accumulates that material, and that material is called the clay. And in Sanskrit it is called mrit. Mrit means mitti, clay. So ghatadi sisrikshuna, by a pot maker who has the interest to make pots, kulalena, and a pot maker who wants to create pots, who wants to make pots, mrit pindam, he collects mrit pindam, means clay ball. You know, a pot maker, before he makes pot, he not only makes the clay soft, but he makes balls out of it. Making balls, small balls, depending upon what kind of pots you want to make. This clay ball is called mrit pinda. Like in order to make roti, you knead the flour into a ball, that is called pinda. Or when you give a pinda tarpanam to the shraddha, then you don't throw rice pieces, you make balls, pinda. You make rice balls and then give it. And then who come and take it? Crows. That means what? Your ancestors visit you in the form of crows. In the form of crows. And if the crows don't come, that means, my God, something not very good, not desirable. So you must always expect that naturally in Indian context, crows. Supposing you do Tarpanam in England, are there crows there? There are some places where there are no crows. And some bird has to come. But anyway, what I am telling, I am only defining what is a ball, mrit pinda. A kulala prepares the clay to make pots. Now you are going from one place to another place and you are passing through that village. While passing through that village, you saw balls of clay kept ready by the pot maker to be converted into pots. Just remember this context. You saw clay balls. You are going from Delhi to Meerut, let us say, you are going from one place to another place, and in between you had to pass through the village, and while passing through the village, you came across a pot maker's house, and he has a big angan. You understand? Angan, an open space, and you saw that open space full of clay balls. And clay balls also is nothing but clay. And in the morning, you passed through that village. And you went to your place. And in the evening, when you come back, you see the same place. And in the place of the clay balls, you will find all pots. Remember this context. When you are going in the morning, you saw the place full of clay balls. And when you return in the evening, aparanhe, when you return in the evening, all that you see is nothing but pots. What is the pratyabhijna? This is called pratyabhijna. Pratyabhijna is what? It just strikes you. All these pots were nothing but clay. This is called sadeva somidamagrasit. These pots that I am seeing today, the pots that I am seeing now, in the evening, in the morning, what they were? They were all clay. These pots were clay. Is it inference? Oh, badi baat hai. I want to explain to you that there are no inferences made in life. It is all perception. When you say these pots were clay, You think like this, these pots must have been clay. You saw clay in the morning and in the evening. In the place of clay, you see pots, not elsewhere. Where? In the very place of clay, you come to see pots. What is your pratyabhijna? What is your recognition? These pots were clay. These pots were clay, or these pots must have been clay. These pots were clay, doesn't matter. In the morning I saw they were all clay. When I saw in the morning, these pots were clay. Or these pots must have been clay. No, these pots must have been clay. No, these pots. Once you said these pots must have been clay, it is called inference. These pots were indeed clay. This is perception. This is knowledge, one's knowledge. This is knowledge. There is no inference here in life. Thus, Sadeva Saumya Idamagra Asit is not only Shastra's perception, this is Jiva's perception, unrecognized. It is Jiva's perception but not recognized. Jiva does experience the universe, he also experiences freedom from universe. Just as one experienced the clay in the morning, and now in the same place of clay, one experiences the pot. In the same manner, when you were fast asleep, you experienced yourself free from all musibats. Before I woke up, I was absolutely tranquil. It is the tranquil me that feels disturbed now, the waking. Who becomes disturbed in the waking? The tranquil, the hitherto tranquil, the hitherto peaceful. The before I woke up, I was peaceful. Before I woke up, I was peaceful. The embodiment free me, the body free me, the thought free me, the musibat of any kind free me. Alone looks Jiva. Like the very clay looks pot. Similarly, the very tranquil me looks Jiva. Therefore, is it not one's experience as to who becomes disturbed? Is it not one's experience that as to who becomes a sansari? The asansari becomes sansari. The hitherto asansari, before I woke up, I was not a sansari, I was peaceful. It is the asansari who becomes sansari. This is called Maya sthiti. Therefore, can I not say this very disturbed me was peaceful me? This very pot was clay. Or is it like this? This disturbed me must have been peaceful. Is it like that? Or this disturbed me was peaceful me? This disturbed me was peaceful, not must have, not inference. Anyway, I have to really din this thought into the minds of the students, because it's worth talking only on Vedanta, because that is the only thing useful in life. It is nice to be just brief about everything in life and be elaborate on Vedanta. Understand? Just be brief about everything in life. Be brief, because elaborate on anything other than Vedanta is too boring. elaborately talking on your ornaments is too boring. Elaborately talking on these names and forms is too boring. I'm telling this is the truth. What I'm telling is very serious matter. I think we should learn to be brief on the non-essential matters and elaborate on the essential matter. Vedanta is essential.